Ethan and Kyle had been best friends since the second grade, when Kyle punched a bully in the mouth for trying to take Ethan's Batman lunchbox. Now, nearly a decade later, they were both 17. Lanky and awkward in the way only small-town boys on the edge of manhood could be. The summer before senior year was their last real stretch of freedom, and they planned to make it count. That meant camping. Real camping. No public campsites, no cell service, and no one to yell at them for building fires too big or playing music too loud. Just the owls and us. Kyle had grinned as they packed up Ethan's dad's old Suburban and headed into the vast green cathedral of the Oregon woods. Ethan had recently bought a GoPro with his part-time grocery store paycheck. He'd convinced himself it was an investment for documenting hikes and capturing wildlife. But mostly, he wanted to feel like one of those wilderness vloggers who always seem to stumble into adventure. Their first night, they made camp beside a slow-moving stream. The forest around them stretched high and wide, the trees looming like old sentinels. They drank cheap soda, shared a joint Kyle had lifted from his older brother, and laughed about old school memories until the fire crackled down to coals. Before turning in, Ethan mounted the GoPro on a tree trunk, angled up at the canopy where he'd seen a barn owl swoop earlier. "Maybe we'll catch it in flight," he said. "Slow motion, wings spread, pure gold, man." Kyle rolled his eyes. "You and your damn owl fetish." They fell asleep in their separate tents. The fire a dull glow behind mesh zippers. The next morning, the owl wasn't on the footage. Something else was. Ethan squatted by the camera, rewinding the tiny screen as Kyle ate dry cereal from the box. There, did you see that?" "What?" Ethan tapped the screen, heart ticking faster. "Watch this branch right here. See, that one." He rewound the footage again, slowed it down. It wasn't an owl, not a squirrel or a raccoon, nothing normal. Two dots, glowing faintly green, hovered in the treetops. Then they moved, quickly, impossibly. Leaping from one tree to another, without sound or sway, Kyle leaned in. "That's just light from the fire, or lens flare, or maybe a raccoon with crazy eyes." Ethan shook his head. "No way. It's moving. Look at the distance it covers. Nothing jumps like that." Kyle watched again, then stood, brushing crumbs off his shirt. "You're freaking yourself out. Let's go. I want to hit the ridge before noon." But Ethan couldn't shake it. That night, Ethan mounted the camera again. Same angle, but this time, he left a flashlight shining upward to light the branches, just in case. At 2:41 a.m., the camera caught movement again. The flashlight flickered once, then died. A soft sound came next, barely audible even with the volume up. A low rustling, like wind through dead leaves, then eyes, glowing green-white, far too high in the trees to belong to anything natural. They flickered into view and then vanished, only to reappear 10 feet away. Then again, closer each time. Ethan woke up to silence. No bird song, no wind, just the weight of stillness. Kyle's tent was empty. At first, Ethan thought he'd gone to pee. He wandered the clearing, calling his name. No answer. His voice felt small in the early dawn, swallowed by the thick forest. Then he noticed something strange. Footprints. 2 sets. One his, leading to the stream. The other, larger, elongated, wrong, leading toward the woods. They didn't walk. They hopped almost, the prints spaced far too widely, like something had leapt from tree to tree and landed only briefly on the ground. A faint trail of disturbed leaves led deeper into the forest. Ethan followed. He found the shredded remnants of Kyle's sleeping bag half a mile in. Slashed open, torn like tissue paper. No blood, no body. Just the GoPro, lying on its side in the dirt, still recording. When Ethan played it back, he saw Kyle's silhouette sitting up in his tent. Then a whisper, too soft to be words. He'd stepped out, flashlight in hand, turned toward the trees. Then, the eyes. They blinked into view above and behind him. Kyle didn't notice. The figure moved, glided, across the upper limbs of the trees, staying just out of reach of the light. Ethan's hand shook as he watched Kyle's figure vanish into the shadows. The flashlight flickering and then going out. The last image was a single frame, just one, but enough. Kyle's face, staring into the lens, mouth open, eyes empty. Behind him, two glowing lights in the darkness. Then nothing. Ethan made it back to the Suburban, half running, half sobbing, his mind trying to make sense of what he'd seen. He drove the winding forest road like a madman, the GoPro gripped tight in his hand. He didn't stop until he reached the ranger station, where he handed over the footage and collapsed into silence. The authorities searched, of course they did. They found nothing. No blood, no body, not even the footprints Ethan swore were there. The video? Gone. The camera had been wiped. Static, they said, probably water damage. But Ethan knew. He'd seen it. And so had the ranger, judging by the way he'd gone pale before calling for backup. Now Ethan spends his nights scrolling through camping forums, watching trail cam videos, zooming in on the trees, looking for those eyes, because he knows they're still out there, gliding silently through the canopy, watching, waiting. And somewhere, deep in that endless sea of trees, his best friend is still out there too. But he's not Kyle anymore. Not exactly. The first thing the internet saw was the drone footage. A slow, sweeping pan over the decaying remains of Camp Hollow. Nestled deep in the Massachusetts woods, 20 miles from the nearest gas station, and even further from common sense. The cabins were skeletal. Nature had claimed the dining hall. Its roof collapsed like a punched lung. But what drew everyone in, what really went viral, was the shape barely visible in the drone's final frame. A crude spiral carved into the dead grass near the old fire pit. That's when the Dark Side's crew decided to go in. They were four. Wes, the showrunner and face of the channel. Nia, who handled audio and mood shots. Trev, the skeptic/comedian. And Cass, the quiet one. Always filming, rarely speaking. They'd done asylum basements, old prisons, even spent a night in a supposedly haunted doll museum. None of it had ever touched them. Camp Hollow Wood, they arrived at dusk. There's something off about this place, Nia said, adjusting her mic as they stepped over broken fence posts and into the woods. You mean besides the fact that it looks like it eats people? Trev joked, but even he sounded tight. Wes raised a hand. Let's keep it professional. Record everything. We're staying until sunrise. They each wore GoPros and body mics. Cass, as her always, carried the shoulder cam. She never let it leave her grip. Their plan was to hit four main areas: the mess hall, the bunk cabins, the archery range, and the old chapel. They'd split into pairs. Standard stuff. But none of it went to plan. The footage begins glitching an hour in. Nia is alone, whispering in a guttural language, nothing that resembles English. She stands in the chapel's pulpit, head tilted back, eyes rolled wide. The audio cracks, then cuts out entirely. The others later swear they left her with Trev. In another video, Trev is seen shirtless, kneeling in the mud near the dining hall. He's digging with his hands, fast and furious, like something inside him is trying to get out. The ground is wet, and in one frame, you can see what looks like a child's hand buried in the muck. He doesn't remember doing any of it. Cass's footage is the worst. It starts normal. Angles of rotted bunks, close-ups of old name tags, rusted cutlery. Then the camera pans across the cabin mirror. For a split second, Cass isn't alone. There's a tall, narrow figure behind her. Its face a blank oval, skin like boiled wax. It reaches for her, but she doesn't react. Later, the footage becomes fractured, almost like it's been watched from the inside. There's a portion, 15 minutes, where Cass is missing entirely. Just static and the sound of breathing. When she reappears, her eyes are ringed in black, and she's humming an old campfire song no one remembers teaching her. By 3 a.m., they're panicked. The team regroups in the chapel, terrified, exhausted. Wes calls for the van. They never make it. The last frame of the final broadcast is blurry, but telling. Wes, frozen mid-scream, back-arched, staring at something just outside frame. The camera tilts, folds, lands in the dirt, pointing at the rafters. There, nailed into the ceiling beams, are dozens of crude dolls, child-sized, made of sticks and cloth and teeth. The feed ends. When police investigated, they found the van parked half a mile down the access road, doors open, no one inside. Body cams, memory cards, and cameras had all been left behind at the camp's entrance, untouched. But the footage, what little the crew uploaded, spread like wildfire. People picked it apart, frame by frame. Forums argued over hidden images, symbols, the whispers caught in the static. Linguists said the language wasn't human. Psychologists claimed the crew had staged it. No one could explain the spiral. Cass was the only one who ever resurfaced. She was found wandering a Walmart parking lot 6 days later, barefoot and humming. She didn't speak, not a word. Just stared into the sky and whispered, "They never left." To this day, no one stays at Camp Hollow overnight. Not since the dolls showed back up in the chapel. Not since new spirals began appearing in the grass. And especially not since people started hearing digging sounds in the dirt. Long after the last camper should have been laid to rest.